Welcome to App Stories, a weekly exploration of the world of apps. Today's show is brought to you by Direct Mail and Astropad. I'm John Voorhees, and with me is my co-host, Federico Viticci. Hey, Federico.
Hello, John. How are you?
I'm doing all right today. You know, I'm coming off that big article about Catalyst. You know, I mean, I have a lot of fans in the Catalyst community now.
You do?
No, I have some people who are not too happy with me, and you know, I could do a bunch of follow up today about all the issues and things we talked about last week, but you know, I don't think I'm going to. The one thing I will say though is that I'm a little depressed at the reaction to Catalyst, just because I feel like there's an opportunity here that a lot of people just don't see, and kind of in any debate about this, you know, obviously Twitter lends itself to this sort of poor form of debate. But in any discussion of this that I've seen online, especially on Twitter, there's not really a discussion. It's more just there's a talking past each other type of thing. And people are seeing only what they want to see and not actually evaluating the merits of the arguments.
I think it's Catalyst is the perfect excuse for some people to sort of share some of the feelings that they have about iPad and iOS in general, even though it's not, I mean, Catalyst is not about that. I think we should be able to have a discussion about Catalyst without having to share what we think about the iPad. Like,
right, exactly.
You can argue that Catalyst is a good idea for the Mac app ecosystem without having to make the discussion about, oh, I don't work from the iPad because I prefer Apple script on the Mac. Like, those are separate issues, and I think some people are conflating them in this discussion, which is too bad because we're missing the point about Catalyst, which is what you tried to do with your article, and I saw some of the responses, and that's why I wish Apple had some better examples, because they could have sort of steered the discussion in a different direction, but they didn't, and so what we're left basically just arguing among us, which is some people just don't want to participate in this discussion.
Right. Well, yeah, that is unfortunate, but it is what it is. And, you know, I think our position, at least at Mac Stories, is pretty clear on it. I heard you and Mike and Steven talk about it a little bit on Connected too. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, I guess we'll put that behind us for now and see what happens in the fall. I have talked to a lot of developers, and a lot of developers, including some of the ones of the apps that I named in that story, have told me that they're working on Catalyst apps. I don't know if they'll be ready day one, but I'm encouraged to at least have heard that some of these people are working on apps. So I look forward to giving those a try.
So that's nice. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very nice. So today I want to talk about reminders. And I know you have spent a lot of time in this. I have not done quite as much, but I have been fiddling around with it lately. And so, you know, kind of continuing with our theme of apps that are being updated for iOS 13, we wanted to go over reminders because, to me, putting aside shortcuts, which, I mean, that's really kind of the big daddy of them all, reminders to me is the most interesting of the rest of the apps that are out there and being updated for iOS 13.
Yeah, I think it's really the biggest update probably along with Photos, in terms of what's changing in a pre-installed first-party default Apple app in iOS 13 and iPadOS. And I think it's especially impressive when you consider how Reminders was last updated in iOS 7. So that would be 2013, 6 years ago. And It's basically been left unchanged. The new Reminders app in iOS 13 is basically all new. The entire structure, the entire design has been replaced. The old card-based, sort of, you had a stack of cards for your lists. That's gone completely. In a way, Reminders is now reminiscent of Notes in terms of there's a sidebar, and the sidebar contains all of your lists, and your lists can now be contained in folders. So you can have groups of lists if you sort of want to have some kind of project-based organization, which of course doesn't mean the Reminders actually does projects. These are just folders, but they allow you to have a better visual structure and visual separation in the sidebar.
This episode of App Stories is brought to you by Direct Mail. It's an easy-to-use email marketing app designed exclusively for the Mac to help you create and send great-looking email newsletters. email marketing is still an incredibly cost-effective way to reach your customers and grow your business. And for the past 15 years, Mac users around the world have trusted direct mail to help handle all of their email marketing needs. It's designed just for the Mac, which means it's fast, easy to use, and works great with your other apps and services. With direct mail, you can quickly and easily compose high-quality emails that look great on mobile and on the desktop. You can also get in-depth campaign reports that show you how many people are reading, clicking, and sharing your newsletter. And you can grow your mailing list by creating email sign-up forms that you can add to your website or Facebook page. There's a whole lot more too. They even have real human live chat customer support available to answer questions too. And direct mail is the #1 top-rated email marketing app for the Mac with 5-star reviews on the App Store, Get App, and elsewhere. On top of that, the app is trusted by small businesses, nonprofits, schools, and Fortune 500 companies alike. Direct mail is free to download and get started. Listeners of this show can save 10% off all full-feature pricing plans. So head over to directmailmac.com/appstories to check it out. Again, that URL is directmailmac.com/appstories to get 10% off when you opt for a full feature plan. Our thanks to Direct Mail for their support of App Stories.
There's also these, Apple calls them smart lists. And these are not the smart lists that we were hoping for, I guess. But they are, like we had a discussion a few months ago, I think, about how we wanted Apple to follow what we've seen in apps like Good Task in terms of being able to search and have some search parameters to say, let me create sort of like a smart playlist in iTunes. Let me create a custom view in reminders that shows me, I don't know, tasks due within the next 3 days that have also been tagged with, I don't know, taxes or something like that. These smart lists in the new Reminders app, they are essentially 4 large buttons, 4 shortcuts that show you your tasks due today, all the scheduled to-dos that you have in the app, all of your tasks, and just the flagged ones. And initially, I was very bummed, honestly, about this decision of smart lists are not user-defined, are not custom lists, are not based on search filters. But the more I've been using the app, the more I've actually been taking advantage of these 4 buttons at the top of the sidebar. And I don't know about you, John, but I find myself jumping between the today and scheduled views all the time now.
Yes, that's absolutely true. And I think that's, I was kind of bummed when I first saw that too. And I thought about it though, and how I use Good Task, for instance, or Things when I was using that more regularly. And for the most part, I live in the today view, except for then I will jump to something like tomorrow or next 3 days and that kind of thing. But scheduled or all kind of takes care of that in a way, because I can go through the scheduled ones and just kind of see what's coming up that way. And I don't have to go through every single, the entire list if I don't want to go that many days in advance. Or I go to all and just kind of make sure I've seen everything that's kind of coming up in a particular list. But it's really scheduled in today, I guess, that I spend the most time in. What I will miss though is the tagging a little bit, because I don't use it a lot, but I do have, for instance, I have a tag for you. And so if you and I
thank you.
Yeah, if we have things we need to talk about when we get on Skype, if it's related to App Stories, it'll be in the App Stories project, but it'll be tagged with your name. Or if it's a Mac Stories thing or a club thing, it'll be in those lists. And so I can go into my smart list, that my Teachy list, and it'll have the 4 or 5 things that you and I need to talk about, and they might be spread across 3 or 4 different projects. And that I think I will miss. But the reality is I don't really use that feature for a lot beyond that. So it really, I could just create another list that's just, things to talk about.
I was about to ask, what are you going to do now?
That's what I'm going to do, I think.
Yeah, that's basically the same sort of problem that I've been through ever since I moved from Good Task to Reminders. When I installed iOS 13, I used to have a few And I use this a lot. I use smart views in Good Task. For example, one of them was writing, and my custom writing list was based on the following filters. It was sorted by due date. It fetched all of my reminders that were stored in the articles list that were tagged as write with hashtag writing. That
Right.
allowed me to have a single article list where I could put tasks that were supposed to be written or that were supposed to be edited. And using smart lists, I could then filter and create two custom views to say, show me all the things that I'm supposed to write and show me all the things that I'm supposed to edit. But they were actually all coming from a single reminders list. So when I moved from Good Task to Reminders, what I did was I ended up creating like a master folder called Mac Stories. And Mac Stories now contains iOS review, club, writing, editing, and admin. So
All right.
basically, instead of saying like articles and then just open the list and manually see, like, I don't know, put like writing in the title of the task, I prefer to actually make two separate lists. So one for writing, one for editing. And I guess as I go, I'll just move tasks from one list to the other. Ideally, there should just be tagging support in reminders, like in files. But then again, you look at files, and even though it's got tagging since iOS 11, you still cannot do smart folders in iOS 13. So I'm not sure the tagging would be the solution unless Apple allowed you to actually create smart folders in the system.
True. I mean, tags without a way to really filter
Yeah.
based on them aren't really going to do much good. What do you do with writing that's like club writing versus Mac Stories writing? Are they in one list or two different lists?
Yeah, club is a separate list. So I have because for the club, like there isn't as much of a separation between writing and editing because all of our columns for the newsletter have to be shorter than, like, I don't write like a 10K word, 10,000 words for the club,
Right.
because I gotta fit the newsletter format. And so usually when I write for the club, I also edit the piece immediately. So there isn't as much of a need for me to say I'm gonna write this on Monday and then edit it on Friday, like I do for
Sure.
Mac Stories. Like, give me a few days to actually finish writing and give me a couple of days to think about the piece, let it simmer, let me think about it for a few days and then switch back to editing. Writing for the club is a more of an immediate process. Like
Yes, it is.
if I write my app debuts and then I'm just gonna edit them immediately because it takes me
Yeah.
like 20 minutes. It's not a
Right.
big deal.
Right. No, that makes a lot of sense. The other thing I think I will do if I end up working in reminders kind of a longer term is that I'll probably start using notes a little better than I have in the past. In that sometimes
How?
because sometimes with Good Task and other task managers, I'll have projects that are not much more than a collection of lists where it's just, they're not necessarily, they're still tasks, but they'll be like, ideas more than they are actual tasks. So
Okay.
ideas for stories, ideas for people to contact as sponsors for the site, stuff like that. And those could very well just be, especially, I really like what's been done with notes, and I've been using that a lot more and cleaning up my mess of notes, because I'm anticipating what I'll do is I'll have especially now that it's easy to make folders right from on iOS, I'll have a more structured outline of notes, and I'll use lists in those to maybe as checklists. Even I may even try using that for some of these things where it's like, here's a checklist of ideas for stories for the club or something, and I'll go through and check them off as I do them, instead of dropping that stuff in a task manager. Because the problem with dropping in a task manager, even though it doesn't show up in a today view, because I don't date those sorts of things, those are more like ideas to be visited once in a while, it still creates, I end up with way too many tasks, and so it makes kind of the all category a little cluttered.
I see. So I'm actually gonna give you a quick teachy tip here.
Oh, nice.
If you drag and drop a note from the Notes app into Reminders in iOS 13, it creates a task that has a little notes icon that you can tap and it'll take you back directly to the note, sort of like when you do the Siri invocation, like remind me about this. Yeah, but it works with drag and drop.
That would be really good, because one of the things that I think about all the time is I'll have a list of things for the newsletter that I'll be thinking about in advance, and if something comes up, I'll just drop it in the list. And this would be a great way. I could have a task that says, plan Mac Stories Weekly, and I can go straight to that note and see what I've got in my list. That's great.
Yeah. So new in iOS 13, speaking of reminders lists, you can have custom colors as before, but also custom icons. So there's a subset of the new glyphs that Apple designed. They're called SF symbols. They are actually fonts based on the San Francisco font family, and they are made available to developers. There are 1,500 of them in iOS 13 for developers to choose from. There's a subset of, 50, 60, maybe in reminders.
Right.
It's a pretty good selection. I wish there were a bit more. And we can maybe have a screenshot of my reminders app. There's a good selection. There's a bookmark that reminds me of Mac Stories, and that's for my writing list. There's a computer. There's a star. I struggle to come up with a good podcasts icon for my podcasts list. There's no microphone or no recording button, so I just chose a circle for some reason. It reminds me of the circle for the recording symbol. There's a carrot, which I use for my grocery list.
That's good.
And there's pills, which I use for my pharmacy list.
Oh, yeah, I did see that list, yeah.
Yeah, so it's nice to have this kind of a visual enhancement. It makes the app look nicer and more intuitive, more friendly.
I like, too, the fact that you can collapse your groups and lists with the subtasks in them. It just makes things a little neater, so you're not overwhelmed with information all at once. This episode of App Stories is also brought to you by Astropad Studio. Astropad Studio turns your iPad into a completely customizable graphics tablet, so you can combine the power of the Apple Pencil with your favorite Mac apps right from your iPad. The makers behind Astropad understand that no two artists work the same way. That's why they've packed Astropad with opportunities to customize every aspect of your workflow with features like programmable gestures, custom pressure curves, and unlimited per-app shortcuts. They've literally designed Astropad from the ground up for professional artists. And they guarantee low-latency performance over Wi-Fi or a USB cable, so you can set up your workspace on the go. It's a high-performance tool for the most demanding creative work, and it's used by major animation studios and product design firms across the globe. So, if you're ready to take your creative workflow to the next level, you can start your free 30-day trial of Astropad Studio today. Just visit astropad.com to get started. Again, that's astropad.com. Go check it out. Our thanks to Astropad Studio for their support of App Stories.
We should talk about some of the other new features in addition to the design and the new list organization.
Yep.
There's so we talked about notes and rich links last week. Rich links are also supported in the new Reminders app. And there's a variety of previews actually that the app shows you. So if you enter a link in the new URL field of a reminder, which by the way, I'm not sure if third-party developers can actually access this field if they integrate with reminders. This is unclear to me at this point. I guess it depends if the EventKit API supports this new URL field. But anyway, in reminders, if you paste a link from Safari or Twitter, any link from the web in reminders, it'll load the preview, just like in Notes, just like in iMessage. And like in Notes, you can tap and hold, and you can choose to display the thumbnail as a large preview or as a small one. If you choose the small one, it'll just show you the favicon of the website and the domain name. If you use the large one, it'll be an actual preview, like in Messages and Notes.
Right.
Also, reminders can preview images that you can attach to reminders, and it can capture and preview scanned documents, because the scanned document feature is now available in reminders and files in iOS 13. So that's nice. You can attach PDF documents to your tasks. You cannot, however, at the moment, attach any file to a reminder, which is one of my radars that I filed with Apple. You should be able to pick any document, any file that you want, and use it as an attachment. Right now, it's either links, photos, or PDF documents that you scanned.
Well, it's good that PDFs are included. I didn't actually realize that. I thought it was just JPEGs and PNGs and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I guess it generates. I guess it generates a PDF. I mean, when you scan a document, I'm just double checking now. But if I took a picture of my desk, let's see, if I keep the scan and I save it, well, yeah, it doesn't work right now. So it says no file to preview. So I guess we'll circle back on this when we know what file format the app uses.
All right.
Yeah, maybe it's gonna be an image. I don't know. It should be a PDF though.
It does make sense. It makes sense that it would be a PDF because I don't think the old scanning feature was a JPEG. I think it was a PDF too. So that does make sense.
Yeah. Previews can be tweaked to be large or small on a per list basis. So that's nice. You can choose to have big previews in an individual list and maybe small previews in the all or scheduled view if you want to, make it more compact and show a lot of tasks all at once. There are new triggers in reminders. Have you played around with this, John?
I have a little bit, not a lot, but I'm really looking forward to using it more because it's really cool what you can do. I mean, you've got all sorts of different things in the quick type bar, which I find really neat. I mean, you can do, of course, like time and date and location, but you can also do the flags and images from there too, right?
Yeah, you can do. So basically, when you create a reminder, you have this custom bar, and the bar includes 4 icons. You have flags and images, and then you have time and location.
Right.
Some of these were possible before. They're just presented better in the UI, and they don't require Siri. So, for example, you can just create a reminder and tap on the location icon, and you'll have like suggestions for like when you arrive at home or when you arrive at work or when you get in your car. And the home and work triggers are created automatically by the system based on your contact card. So if you have an address in your profile, in your contact card in contacts, it'll know that you have a home address and a work address, and it'll suggest those as triggers in the quick bar for reminders. And also you have a full inspector. So of course you can search for any location or any place that you've saved in maps, stuff like that. Thanks to the quick bar, you always have shortcuts for today, tomorrow, and this weekend.
Right.
And again, you can go in, open the full inspector, and choose to get more precise. And something pretty neat in iOS 13 is that you can have a trigger for when the next time that you message someone in your contacts. So this happens all the time to me. Like I would be thinking about things that I have to do, and I'm like, I gotta remember the next time I talk to John or I talk to Mike that I gotta bring up this topic. And now you can actually do this as a feature of reminders. You flip a switch and you pick a contact and you say, the next time that I'm talking to John, bring up this reminder. And basically what happens is the next time you're on iMessage and you send your first text message to that person, you'll get a reminders notification that says, because you're messaging John, do this. So this is like person-based reminders is something that I've always wanted.
Right.
I guess it'll be neat in the future to have more, like the next time I'm talking to John, maybe with FaceTime, or the next time I'm meeting John, and maybe that could be based with Find My Friends. I don't know, but an expansion of this feature would be amazing in the future.
I think it's really cool. The other thing that I thought was really neat the other day, I think it was the beginning of the week, and we were coordinating our recording schedule.
Oh, yes.
I asked you if we could record 2 episodes of App Stories on Thursday, and you sent me a screenshot of the notification you got that suggested a reminder be created for Thursday about recording 2 episodes of App Stories, which is just amazing to me. I love that feature.
Yeah, we were actually talking on iMessage, and I don't remember how you phrased the sentence. You were like, could you record on this specific day?
Right. Like, could you record 2 episodes on Thursday or something like that?
And the next time I open reminders, there's actually a special section of the app even that says like Siri suggestions, and it shows you the what the system interpreted. It's like, hey, I noticed that in messages, this was brought up. Do you want to save it as a reminder? Which I thought that was amazing.
Yeah, no, that's really good. The other thing I'd like to see with the QuickType bar is, for instance, in the date and time suggestions, it would be great if you could bump something to the evening and say, instead of just,
Yeah.
tomorrow or this weekend, this weekend's great, but I'd actually kind of prefer if I had one that said tonight, so I could do a little bit like Things does, where you can have a special list that's things you want to do in the evening.
Yeah, it would be nice to have that kind of separation. To have and maybe Apple could actually use some of the system intelligence and machine learning on iOS to actually expand how it suggests these times also based on your calendar. So maybe if you see that I have an event in my calendar this evening, do not suggest this evening. Or if you see that
Right.
I'm going away for the weekend, maybe do not use this weekend as a default trigger, but maybe put Monday in there, something like that.
Right.
Natural language also coming in iOS 13. You will be able to sort of like in Fantastical and other app, when you're typing a reminder, if you type Monday or tomorrow, or if you type 3 p.m., those bits of text will be highlighted in blue, and you need to tap on a suggestion in the quick type bar to convert that text into an actual field of the reminder. So if you accept what the system recognizes through natural language recognition, you will be able to enter dates or times just by typing and accepting the suggestion. Based on screenshots that I've seen in marketing material from the Apple website, you will be able to do things like Friday at 8 p.m., but right now combining a day and a time is not working for me. I can either only type a date, so just Friday,
Right.
or a time, not both at the same time, but it should be working. So I think it's just a bug at the moment in beta 2.
Right. And it lets you do repeating tasks too. So
Yes.
you can do something like every Friday, that kind of thing. That would work too.
Yeah, that should work. I've seen some people say that it's working for them in beta 2 if you use like a hyphen between the date and the time. I think it's more of a bug, or it's related to your locale. So if you're using not the US region setting, maybe it's working already. Natural language recognition is very much based on these different, of course, there's a different way of writing dates between Italy and the US, for example. So I think it's the kind of issue that will be fixed, as the beta goes on.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And I guess we should mention also how you can have subtasks for your reminders. You can, if you have a reminder that includes multiple steps, you can now have subtasks to that master reminder. Good example for me would be when we send Mac Stories Weekly every Friday, there's a few steps that I need to go through, like put a link to the newsletter in the archive and make sure that you have a PDF copy, make sure that the club account has tweeted, all of this stuff. These are subtasks for a single reminder that I have repeating every Friday. And another teachy tip for you, John, if you are in a reminder list, if you actually, like, for example, if you just entered a bunch of reminders, one after the other, and then you realize, oh, these are actually all part of the same task.
Right.
I think you can actually swipe right. So you select a task and swipe to the right, and you will get an indent button on the left side that allows you to convert that reminder into a subtask for the reminder just above it. So swipe to the right, and you'll get an indent button. And actually, the same gesture, if you are in the Today view, or let me see, doesn't work in the Schedule view. So if you are in the Today view and you want to quickly reschedule your tasks, you can swipe to the right, and instead of indent, you will get, for example, right now I'm seeing tomorrow and this weekend.
Oh, I like that a lot. That's really cool.
So you can quickly reschedule your tasks.
The other thing about tasks is you can have tasks with a due date but no time now, which
yes,
I think before the default was like midnight, right? And now you can do it without a time, which is just nice because there's a lot of things. It's like, I don't know when I'm going to do this today, and it doesn't have to be done at a particular time. If it had to be done on a particular time, maybe I'd put it on my calendar, but it doesn't have to be. So just having the day is totally fine. So it's just a nice little addition.
And one last thing, if you want to use reminders with just dates, you can go to Settings, Reminders, and you can choose when to be notified for reminders that are due today but don't have a time. So you can, for example, my default today notification, this is the name of the setting, is 2 p.m. So if you just want to enter dates, but then you're like, well, I actually want to be notified, you can choose a default time for that.
You and I live on very different clocks, Federico.
What's your default?
I think my default will be 6 a.m.
Oh my God. That's no way to live.
It's no way to live, I know. Well, just think of me as living on Italian time at, say, I don't know, what is that? That's 1 o'clock. Okay, so that's you know.
Sure.
All right.
That makes sense.
I'm living my best Italian life right now.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Federico. I think that's probably a good place to stop for this week. We'll be back, of course, next week. You can find me and Federico over at macstories.net, writing away every single day of the week, pretty much. And you can find me and Federico over on Instagram and on Twitter. Federico is at Viticci, that's VITICCI, and I'm at John Voorhees, JOHNVORHWS. Talk to you next week, Federico.
Ciao, John.